So my question for both of you, how has it changed back in the 80s, you were given a lot of information about a character to come up with a voice for that character. How has that changed today compared to what you used to do, before the age of super NDAs?
Well, for me, it hasn't changed a bit. I mean, you develop a style of how to incorporate voices and blend voices, and you utilize that style. The thing that changes is the nuances of what you might play, depending upon, the characters who were around in the 80s versus the characters that are around now, where the audience is. So I might do something different now than I would have done in the 80s. But for myself personally, the process hasn't changed that much on how I differentiate characters. I find a place in my head that fits, and then I try 3 different things. And somewhere in the middle lies the truth. And like he said, if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else, and it's not anything personal, and it's hard not to take it personal, but they went with somebody else for what they did. And it's everybody's in the same place when they start out. You're in the middle of the circle, and then you can head out one direction or another. But when you audition, you're in the center of the circle, and you don't know which direction it's going to go. You only hope you're pulled into the show.
I think, what do I think? I think it goes back to that collaboration between artist, writer, and voice person. I think the more you honor the work that the artist has done for 6 months before you got there, and that the writer has done for 6 months before you got there, the more chance you have to dive into all that work and come up with something. But I still read animated scripts as though they were radio plays. I look for all the hints that can be conveyed through audio. The same way in a film, there's an exercise where you go through a film or even a play on stage, and you write down everything that every other character says about you when you're either present or not present. And you have to, you're tasked with finding a way to make all of those things appear somehow during your performance at weird times. That person who said, but he's a little insecure, but he's a little arrogant, but he's a little, all those things, just like an improv exercise. Everything that's said before you arrive has to be established as true when you appear. Well, the same thing happens on a voiceover basis with clues that you're given, but you only have the distance between you and a microphone to turn that into truth. They asked Grimlock to take an arc that went like that. I went all over the place. But I thought, my goal is not to challenge that. My goal is to make that true. That weird thing, that new brain, that whatever, it's really happening. And so what am I going to do with it? And so in that sense, it hasn't changed. It'll never change. It'll always be fresh if you read it as a radio play and try to figure out where you fit into that from an audio standpoint. As far as other people in the room, I just can't tell you. You have to reach the right person on the right day, in the right mood, at the right production meeting. It doesn't mean you did anything wrong. Everybody, once you reach a certain tier of our profession, everybody is doing it right. It's just who's the best application for that day.
Apples and oranges. Apples. Do you want an apple? Do you want an orange?
It could be a coin toss, and you could go into a deep depression over something that you were a silly millimeter away from. I just think you do what you do, and as long as your agent believes in you and you believe in you, you wait for the clock to turn around. But just like an author who's got like 10 unsold screenplays on the shelf, it doesn't mean that when demand exceeds supply, that they're not going to immediately say, well, do you have anything else? And you go back to everything that didn't sell, and suddenly someone is looking at you differently, so they're looking at your work differently. we have a poster at our house that says, go to your studio and create something. Something. Go make something. Because once you make it, it's yours. You did that. And with Netflix and Prime, it's kind of hard to go to your studio at all. And how did they make it through the Spanish flu without Netflix and Prime? We are mega bingers, and we've seen some phenomenal stuff during pandemic.